The silent arrival. The night sky was calm, just like any other. Stars twinkled above, their light a gentle reminder of the vast universe that stretched beyond the reaches of Earth. But this night was different. Something in the air felt off, like the calm before a storm. For weeks, strange anomalies had been detected in the deep space near Earth's solar system, but no one could have predicted what would happen next. It began with a flicker. A small signal, weak but undeniable, bounced off Earth's satellites. It was so faint that it almost seemed like background noise, nothing more than space static. Yet experts in every corner of the world quickly turned their attention to it. The signal was too precise, too deliberate to be natural. It wasn't random. It was coming from somewhere, something out there. The governments of Earth quickly mobilized. Telescopes, satellites, and military defense systems were all redirected to the source. The world held its breath as scientists and officials worked around the clock to decipher the message. For hours, no one spoke. Everyone was waiting for a breakthrough. Then, just before dawn, they found it. The signal wasn't random after all. It was a language, one that no human had ever heard before, but it had structure, a rhythm that felt almost familiar. Earth's top linguists and cryptographers began working together, decoding the strange series of patterns. It took them hours to translate, but when the first full sentence appeared on the screen, it sent a shiver down the spines of those who saw it. "We are here." A few simple words, but the implications were staggering. Someone, or something, was out there, and they were watching Earth. The message was clear. The message was not a warning, not a threat, but a statement of fact. Earth had just become aware that they were no longer alone. As the sun began to rise, Earth's skies were suddenly filled with something no one had expected. A fleet of ships. Massive ships. Alien ships. They were as large as cities, gliding silently through the sky, their dark silhouettes cutting against the slowly brightening horizon. No one knew how long they had been in orbit, how long they had watched from the shadows of space. They had arrived without warning, without a single sound, and without any sign of hostility. Panic spread through the planet. Governments scrambled to respond, pulling military forces into action. Missiles, satellites, and every piece of defense technology Earth had were ready to be launched. Tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. People gathered in the streets, staring at the sky, unsure of what to do. Some believed it was the beginning of an invasion, while others thought this was a peaceful first contact. The uncertainty left everyone in suspense. The ships hung in the sky like dark clouds, silent and unmoving. They didn't fire a single shot. They didn't make any aggressive maneuvers. They just waited. For hours, nothing happened. Then, just as humanity began to prepare for the worst, the first communication came through. It wasn't a warning. It wasn't a demand. It was a question. "Do you seek help?" The words flashed on every screen, every television, every phone. Earth's leaders, military commanders, and top scientists gathered in emergency meetings to discuss what this could mean. The message was simple, yet it carried a weight no one could understand. Did they need help? And if they did, why were these aliens offering it? For hours, there was no clear answer. The silence from the alien fleet remained. It wasn't until the United Nations called an emergency assembly that the decision was made. Earth's leaders would respond. The message was sent. The humans spoke back, unsure of what to say but knowing they had to say something. "We do." And just like that, the fate of Earth was sealed. The moment the message was sent, something changed. The ships began to move, slowly at first, then faster as they descended toward Earth's surface. They didn't land with violence or aggression. They just landed. The alien vessels settled in a quiet, orderly fashion, surrounding the world's major cities. No one knew what would happen next. Would the aliens invade? Would they demand something from humanity? Or was this truly a peaceful visit? Earth was on the brink of the unknown, standing at the edge of a new era. As the alien ships hovered above, the world waited in suspense, holding its breath for whatever would come next. And then, as the ships touched down, the atmosphere seemed to shift. There was an undeniable sense of calm, but it wasn't just the absence of war or violence. It was something deeper. The aliens were not here to destroy. They were here to offer something unimaginable. But what was it? Was this the beginning of humanity's greatest alliance, or the first step in their final downfall? The world had no answers, only questions, and the silence of the alien fleet told them nothing. No one could know the true intentions of the visitors. Only time would tell if Earth was about to make a new friend, or if they had just opened the door to their destruction. As the day wore on, people continued to stare at the ships above. The silence felt heavier now. The world was no longer alone. And that realization left everyone wondering, what happens next? First contact. The world had never felt so small. Earth, once the lone home of humanity, now stood under the shadow of alien ships that towered over every major city. With every passing hour, the anxiety in the air grew heavier, and so did the uncertainty. People gathered in the streets, staring up at the strange, dark vessels, each one massive enough to block out the sun. It was as if the planet was being watched by giants. For the first time in human history, the leaders of Earth were forced to unite, regardless of past conflicts. World leaders, military commanders, scientists, and diplomats from every nation came together in the United Nations Assembly Hall. But there was no clear plan. No one knew what to do. The only thing they knew was that this moment would define the future of humanity. For hours, Earth's representatives debated their next move. Should they send a team to approach the ships? Should they try to communicate further? Should they prepare for the worst and activate all defenses? Fear gripped the hearts of many, but others urged caution. The alien message had been calm, without any sign of aggression. Yet, as the hours dragged on, the silence from the alien ships grew more oppressive, more unnerving. Finally, it was decided. Earth would send a delegation to the aliens. A team of human diplomats, scientists, and military officials was quickly assembled. Among them was Dr. Evelyn Harper, a renowned linguist who had worked tirelessly for years on translating ancient languages and decoding the mysteries of communication. If anyone could decipher the alien language or understand their intentions, it was her. Alongside her was General Marcus Trent, a seasoned military leader known for his calm under pressure. His role was clear: ensure the safety of the human delegation at all costs. The team boarded a specially designed shuttle, its exterior gleaming in the sunlight. As it ascended into the atmosphere, the tension in the shuttle was palpable. No one spoke. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the dark, hovering ships in the distance. They had no idea what awaited them. As the shuttle approached one of the closest alien vessels, the sheer size of it became even more apparent. The ship was made of an iridescent metal that shimmered in the sunlight, shifting in color like the surface of a deep ocean. The hull was smooth and unmarked, without any visible windows or entrances. Yet despite its imposing size, it was eerily silent. The ship didn't seem to move at all, as though it was part of the sky itself. The shuttle docked on a flat surface near the ship's base, and the human delegation stepped out, each one carrying a mix of hope and dread. They were met by a strange figure, unlike any human they had ever seen. The being was tall, its form sleek and lithe, with an elongated head that seemed to shimmer like a translucent cloud. Its skin had a faint glow to it, an ethereal blue that seemed to pulse softly in the dim light. The alien spoke, its voice deep but gentle, like a whisper that echoed through the minds of those around it. "Welcome, humans. We are the Lurka." Dr. Harper felt her heart race. The language was strange, but somehow she understood. It was not the same as the message they had received, but the meaning was clear. The Lurka had come in peace. The voice that resonated inside her mind was soothing, yet she couldn't shake the feeling that it was only one part of something much larger, something that had yet to be revealed. The Lurka leader continued, "We come to offer assistance. Your world is in danger. A threat approaches, one that has destroyed countless civilizations. We have observed your people and your planet. We believe you are capable of something extraordinary. You will need our help to survive." General Trent, always skeptical, spoke up. "What kind of help are you offering? And why? What do you want from us?" The Lurka's eyes shimmered in the same soft blue as its skin, and for a moment, it seemed as though it was considering the question. Then, it responded, "We do not seek to conquer, nor do we wish to enslave. Our purpose is to protect. You are not alone in the universe. Many civilizations, both young and ancient, have been destroyed by a force we call the Galactic Empire. They are coming for you. We offer the tools, the knowledge, and the power to defend your world." A murmur rippled through the human delegation. The Galactic Empire. The name sent a chill down Dr. Harper's spine. She had never heard of such a force before. The Lurka, however, seemed certain. Their tone was one of unwavering conviction. "You are not prepared for what is coming," the Lurka continued, "but you will be. The Empire has no mercy. It leaves no survivors. But we believe you can stand against them. You must trust us. Your only hope is unity, strength, and the willingness to embrace what lies ahead." The silence that followed was deafening. Earth's representatives exchanged nervous glances. Could they trust these beings? Could they rely on the Lurka to guide them? The threat they spoke of seemed too great to comprehend. Dr. Harper's mind raced. She had always believed that the universe was vast, filled with mysteries waiting to be uncovered. But this was beyond anything she had imagined. The Lurka had knowledge that could change everything. They spoke of the Galactic Empire with the same certainty as one would speak of a natural disaster. Yet how could they trust an alien species that appeared out of nowhere with promises that seemed too good to be true? How could Earth trust them when all they had were words? Before she could voice her concerns, the Lurka leader's voice echoed again, this time with more urgency. "The Empire comes. It is already on its way." The alien stepped back, its form beginning to shimmer and blur, as if it was somehow fading into the very air around them. "Your time is short. The choice is yours, humans. Stand with us, or face annihilation alone." And with that, the alien disappeared into the light, leaving the delegation alone, staring at the empty space where the Lurka had stood. For a moment, there was no sound, only the overwhelming weight of the decision they now faced. Was this truly a gift, or was it a trap? Should Earth trust these strangers, or should they prepare for war on their own terms? The silence was broken by General Trent's voice. "We don't have time to question. We need to act. Now." But in the back of Dr. Harper's mind, one thought repeated over and over. What if the Empire was already closer than they thought? Betrayal and secrets. The days that followed the arrival of the Lurka were filled with constant meetings, debates, and growing confusion. The human leaders were divided. Some were ready to accept the Lurka's offer and forge an alliance, believing that their advanced technology and knowledge might be the key to humanity's survival. Others, however, were skeptical. How could they trust a race that had appeared out of nowhere, offering assistance with no explanation of their true motives? Despite the uncertainty, Earth's defenses were bolstered. The Lurka began sharing their technology with humanity, unlocking secrets that were far beyond anything Earth had ever seen. New weapons were developed, ships designed to rival the alien vessels, and energy shields capable of withstanding even the most powerful attacks. The Earth military quickly began training with this new technology, preparing for an unknown war that they still didn't fully understand. But amidst the unity that was supposed to follow, there was a dark undercurrent of tension. Dr. Evelyn Harper, who had been working closely with the Lurka, couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The Lurka were always vague about their past, especially about their involvement in the destruction of other civilizations. They spoke of the Galactic Empire in hushed tones, warning of its unstoppable might, but they never explained why they hadn't stopped it themselves. Dr. Harper's suspicions grew with every conversation. It was clear that the Lurka were hiding something important. But what? Why were they so insistent that humanity join them in their war? And why were they so secretive about their own role in the galaxy's history? Late one night, after a long day of translating alien texts and studying Lurka technology, Dr. Harper sat alone in her lab, going over her notes. She had a feeling that the answers she needed were somewhere in the hundreds of ancient texts and data that the Lurka had shared with her. She couldn't let it go. Something didn't add up. Her attention was drawn to a peculiar piece of data, a series of coordinates embedded in a set of star maps. The locations seemed oddly familiar, and as she pieced them together, it became clear that these were locations of long-lost civilizations that had been wiped out by the Galactic Empire. The more she dug, the more she realized that the Lurka had been to each of these planets before, offering help just before the Empire destroyed them. Was the Lurka's assistance a genuine act of kindness, or were they simply preparing the way for the Empire's arrival? Could it be that the Lurka weren't heroes after all, but part of a much larger, more complex scheme? Her heart raced as the implications hit her. The Lurka had never fought the Empire. In fact, they had always been there, lurking in the shadows, allowing the Empire to conquer world after world, only to swoop in after the damage had been done. It seemed as if they were preparing for something, a new kind of war, one where they would need the humans to fight their battles for them. The next morning, Dr. Harper couldn't keep the information to herself. She rushed to find General Marcus Trent, the military leader who had been working with the Lurka. She needed to speak to him before things went too far. When they met, Harper didn't waste any time. She threw down the star maps on the table, pointing to the location she had discovered. Look at this. These coordinates, they match up with the sites of former human colonies, civilizations that were wiped out by the Galactic Empire. The Lurka have been there. They've always been there. Trent frowned, his expression grim. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that the Lurka might not be the benevolent allies they claim to be, Harper said, her voice low but firm. They've been guiding civilizations to destruction, and now they're offering to help us. Why now? Why us? Trent ran a hand through his hair, clearly troubled by the revelation. Are you saying they want us to fight for them? That they're using us? I don't know yet, Harper replied, her eyes scanning the data again. But we need to find out. If we don't, we might be playing right into their hands. The general was silent for a long moment, considering her words. Finally, he spoke. We can't make this public. If we do, panic will spread. The Lurka have already promised us technology and weapons to fight the Empire. If we suddenly back out, we'll have nothing. I understand that, Harper said, frustration creeping into her voice. But if we don't act now, we'll be no better than the civilizations that came before us. Trent nodded, his face hardening. You're right. We need answers, and we need them quickly. I'll put together a team. We'll investigate further, but we'll do it quietly. If the Lurka are involved in this, we can't afford to let them know we're onto them. As the general left, Harper felt a strange sense of unease. Even if they uncovered the truth, what could they do with it? Could they fight the Lurka if they were using humanity as a pawn in their grand scheme? And if they exposed the truth, would they have the support of the people, or would they risk plunging the world into chaos? The situation was spiraling out of control, and it seemed as though there was no way out. The Lurka had been playing a dangerous game, and humanity had just become a piece on their board. Meanwhile, Earth's military began to see the fruits of their alliance with the Lurka. New weapons were tested, and alien ships were outfitted with human technology. The first joint missions began, and for the first time, Earth's forces began to feel a sense of hope that they could stand against the Empire. But Harper knew that this sense of hope was a fragile thing, built on the edge of a blade. In the following weeks, tensions began to rise. Secret meetings were held. Surveillance teams were deployed to track the movements of the Lurka and to investigate their true motives. What they discovered sent chills down Harper's spine. The Lurka had been preparing for something far more sinister than a simple war against the Empire. They were setting the stage for something that would change the course of the galaxy forever. And as the first signs of the Galactic Empire's approach began to show, Harper realized with growing horror that Earth might be facing a war on two fronts, one against the Empire and the other against their supposed allies. The clock was ticking, and the truth was slipping further out of reach. The Galactic Empire strikes. The calm that had briefly settled over Earth was shattered in the most unexpected way. After weeks of preparation and uncertainty, the human race was no closer to understanding the full scope of the threat that loomed over them. The Lurka, with their cryptic warnings and promises of protection, had only deepened the mystery, and now Earth was caught in the middle of something far greater than they could ever have imagined. It was just before dawn when the first signs of the Galactic Empire's arrival were detected. Earth's military satellites, positioned at various points along the planet's orbit, suddenly picked up an enormous disturbance, an energy signature unlike anything they had ever seen before. It was too large to be a single ship, and the readings were off the charts. The Empire had come. For a brief moment, hope flared within the human command centers. Could the Lurka be right? Had they been preparing for this moment, ready to stand with Earth against the coming storm? But as the energy readings intensified, that hope began to dim. The Empire was not merely arriving. They were advancing with terrifying speed, and they were not coming to negotiate. Within hours, the first fleet of Imperial warships appeared in the skies above Earth, massive, menacing vessels that seemed to blot out the stars. These were ships of war, their surfaces dark and foreboding, bristling with weapons. And they did not come alone. The Empire had brought an armada, hundreds of ships ready to crush anything in their path. They didn't land. They didn't communicate. They simply waited, hanging ominously in the sky. General Marcus Trent stood at the command center, his face grim as he observed the readings. The Lurka had warned them, but no one had truly prepared for the sheer scale of the Empire's might. He turned to Dr. Evelyn Harper, who was standing nearby, her face pale as she processed the information. "This is it," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "The Empire is here, and it's worse than we thought." Harper swallowed hard, her mind racing. The readings were clear. These were not just invaders. This was an overwhelming force, one that would leave nothing standing in its wake. "What's the plan?" she asked, her voice tight with the weight of the situation. "We fight," Trent replied, his eyes hard. "We have no choice." But even as he spoke, doubts flickered in his mind. The weapons the Lurka had given them were powerful, but against this scale of destruction, would they be enough? The Empire had razed countless worlds, and Earth was nothing compared to those civilizations. The truth was, humanity was fighting a battle they didn't fully understand. The Lurka had promised their help, but would they truly be able to withstand the power of the Empire? The answer came far sooner than anyone had expected. As Earth's military forces scrambled to organize a defense, the Imperial fleet fired their first salvo, a barrage of devastating energy blasts that tore through the atmosphere and hit the ground with the force of 1,000 earthquakes. Cities were flattened in seconds. Communication networks were destroyed. Air defenses were shredded. The first strike had already decimated Earth's military capabilities. The Empire was not here for a prolonged war. They were here to annihilate. The devastation was immediate. There were no warnings, no negotiations. The Empire struck with ruthless precision, targeting Earth's military bases, key infrastructure, and population centers. It was clear that they had been watching Earth for some time, and they knew exactly where to strike to cause maximum chaos. In mere hours, half of Earth's defense systems were offline. The planet was under siege. As the attacks continued, Earth's forces began to fight back. Fighter jets, equipped with the new Lurka technology, launched into the skies, but they were no match for the Empire's sheer firepower. The alien ships that had once seemed so advanced were torn apart by the Empire's superior weaponry. Human soldiers, armed with the best technology Earth could produce, launched coordinated attacks on Imperial ground forces, but the Empire's soldiers, clad in dark, impenetrable armor, swept them aside like ants beneath a boot. The Lurka, despite their promises, had been strangely absent during the initial attack. The few ships they had provided to Earth were outmatched and underpowered compared to the Imperial fleet. As the days dragged on and Earth's resistance faltered, General Trent grew more and more frustrated. Where were the Lurka? Where was the help they had promised? Finally, a Lurka envoy appeared on Earth's largest remaining communications platform, broadcast across the world. The figure was tall, radiant, its blue skin glowing faintly in the darkness. But unlike the first time they had met, there was no reassurance in its eyes. No comfort, only a grim resolve. The Empire is upon you. The Lurka envoy spoke, its voice reverberating through every communication channel. We have not come to fight for you. We have come to guide you. You are not prepared for the war that is to come, and we cannot defeat the Empire alone. But you must stand with us. You must join the war, your war. The message was a chilling confirmation of what Dr. Harper and General Trent had feared. The Lurka had no intention of fighting the Empire themselves. They had always known that Earth was not prepared to defend itself, but they had never fully committed to joining the fight. Instead, they were using humanity's desperation as a means to an end, guiding Earth toward a conflict that they had no intention of winning. The Lurka envoy's words hung in the air like a death sentence. The message was clear. Earth was on its own. The Lurka had given their technology, their knowledge, but now they were stepping back, leaving humanity to face the Empire alone. The help they had promised was an illusion, a trick to gain Earth's trust. And now it was too late. As the final message from the Lurka cut off, General Trent stood in stunned silence, his face grim as he realized the truth. The Lurka had never been their allies. They were using humanity as pawns in a larger, more dangerous game. And now, with the Empire closing in, humanity had no choice but to fight or perish. The destruction was not limited to the military alone. Major cities across Earth began to fall. London, Paris, New York, Beijing. Each one was reduced to rubble in the wake of the Empire's relentless assault. The survivors, now scattered and fractured, began to realize just how small they had become in the face of a much larger galactic war. The people of Earth had no way to fight the Empire, no way to protect themselves from a force so advanced, so brutal, that it seemed unstoppable. As Earth's last line of defense, the remaining forces prepared for the inevitable, an all-out assault on the Empire's flagship. But it was clear that Earth was facing its final hours. The question was no longer if they could defeat the Empire. The question was whether they would survive long enough to even attempt it. And all the while, Earth's most dangerous enemy, the Lurka, watched from the shadows, waiting for the war to unfold in ways no one could predict. The betrayer's gamble. The devastation on Earth continued to escalate. The Imperial fleet, with its sheer power and precision, showed no signs of relenting. In the span of a few short weeks, entire cities were erased from the map. The once bustling metropolises, filled with the pulse of human civilization, had become graveyards. The capital cities were smoking ruins. The sky above was thick with smoke and debris. It was as if the Earth itself was mourning. Humanity was reeling. The military, its forces decimated and its supplies dwindling, began to fall back. A retreat to underground bunkers and hidden bases was the only option left. The people, once full of hope, were now filled with despair. The power of the Galactic Empire was unlike anything they had imagined. It was a force of nature, unstoppable, unrelenting, and seemingly merciless. Dr. Evelyn Harper, who had spent so many sleepless nights poring over the data the Lurka had provided, felt the weight of it all. But she had learned something that had changed everything. In the weeks following the Empire's first devastating strike, Harper had continued her investigation. She knew that the Lurka had been hiding something, The truth was elusive, but as she dug deeper into their history, into the records of the destroyed civilizations they had left in their wake, one word kept coming up again and again: Pax. Pax was not just a name, it was a concept, a vision. The Lurka had been whispering about it for centuries. They spoke of Pax as a force of balance in the galaxy, an idea that supposedly united all races under a singular purpose: the prevention of chaos. But when Harper connected the dots, she realized that Pax was not about peace. It was the very opposite. Pax was about control. The Lurka had always manipulated civilizations into conflict, leading them to destruction by the Empire, so that in the aftermath, they could step in and reshape the galaxy according to their vision of order. The Lurka weren't fighting the Empire. They were working with them. Harper's heart sank as she pieced together the truth. The Lurka were not the saviors they claimed to be. They had been using humanity, just as they had used every other civilization they had encountered. They had given Earth the technology and knowledge not to defend themselves, but to prepare for the Empire's arrival. In return, they would offer a new order, a new galaxy, one where Earth and its people would become pawns in their game. The Empire would continue its conquest, and the Lurka would sit back, watching as humanity struggled and suffered, all while they reaped the rewards of a universe under their control. But Harper had seen something else in the data, something that gave her a glimmer of hope. The Lurka were not invincible. They, too, had their weaknesses. Their grip on the galaxy was not as secure as they believed. The question now was, what could Earth do? How could they fight back, not just against the Empire, but against the Lurka? They had no allies. They had no resources. The war was lost, or so it seemed. But Harper's mind worked feverishly, searching for any possible advantage. And then she remembered something. Something buried deep in the ancient texts the Lurka had provided. The Lurka had spoken of a weapon, one capable of shifting the balance of power. It was not of their creation, but a relic of a long-dead civilization, a weapon that had been hidden away, lost for millennia. The Lurka had guarded its location, speaking of it in hushed tones, warning that it could change the fate of the galaxy. They had never shared its full details, but now Harper had enough pieces to understand its significance. It was called the Exeneris. Harper didn't know much about the Exeneris, except that it was capable of destroying entire fleets with a single strike. The Lurka had avoided mentioning it in their communications, as if it were a secret too dangerous to reveal. But Harper now believed that this weapon, whatever it was the key to ending the Empire's stranglehold on the galaxy. If humanity could find it before the Lurka did, they might have a chance. With a new sense of purpose, Harper contacted General Marcus Trent. The decision to act was not an easy one. Earth was in ruins. Its defenses were shattered. Yet they had no choice. If they could locate the Exeneris, they might be able to strike back and break the Lurka's hold over humanity's future. "We have to find it," Harper said when they met. "The Exeneris is real. The Lurka have been hiding it from us. But if we can get to it first, we can turn the tide." Trent, his face worn with the weight of the ongoing war, nodded gravely. "Where do we begin?" "I've traced a potential location," Harper replied. "A system on the far side of the galaxy. It's where the Lurka were last seen searching. If we move quickly, we might just get there before they do." Trent looked at her, a mix of doubt and determination in his eyes. "We don't have the resources for a full-scale mission, and we're not even sure the Exeneris exists. We don't have a choice. The Lurka are playing us, Marcus. If we don't stop them, they'll use us as tools to usher in the Empire's reign. We have to fight back. This is the only way." Trent took a deep breath, his mind clearly weighing the risks. Finally, he nodded. "I'll gather a small strike force. We'll need to be quick and quiet. If we're wrong, we're dead. But if we're right..." Harper didn't need to hear the rest. If they were right, they had a chance, no matter how slim. The fate of Earth, and of countless civilizations across the galaxy, hinged on the success of this mission. The mission was set into motion. Under the cover of darkness, a small fleet of human ships, equipped with the best technology they had left, was launched. The journey would be perilous. The Empire's fleet was vast, and their reach infinite. But with the element of surprise, they had a chance. They just needed to reach the Xenorus first. As they traveled across the galaxy, Harper's thoughts were consumed by the weapon's potential. If it was as powerful as the Lurka had described, it could change the course of the war. But could they control it? Could they harness such a force without being consumed by it? And most importantly, would they be able to stop the Lurka once and for all? The journey was long, and every moment felt like an eternity. Earth's small fleet pushed forward through the darkness of space, the weight of their mission pressing down on each of them. As they approached the coordinates Harper had discovered, there was an unsettling quiet. The Empire had not yet detected them, but it was only a matter of time. And then, just as they neared the system where the Xenorus was hidden, the unexpected happened. A ship appeared out of nowhere, fast, silent, and impossibly advanced. It was not human. It was not Imperial. It was Lurka. Harper's heart skipped a beat. The Lurka had found them. The silence that followed was deafening. The shadow of the Lurka. The silence that followed the appearance of the Lurka ship was overwhelming. Earth's fleet, once filled with purpose and determination, now stood frozen in the cold vacuum of space. The mysterious vessel was like nothing they had seen before. Sleek, almost organic in design. Its dark surface absorbing the light of distant stars. It moved with a kind of fluid grace, as if it had been here for far longer than the humans could comprehend. And it wasn't alone. Behind the first ship, more followed, emerging from the shadow of a nearby asteroid belt. It was as though the entire Lurka fleet had been waiting just beyond the edge of the system, hidden from Earth's sensors and ready to strike. Harper's heart sank as the fleet grew in number, its sleek shapes filling the void. They were surrounded. General Trent stood at the command center, his face grim as the enemy ships formed a blockade around the human fleet. He turned to Harper, his jaw tightening in resolve. They knew we were coming. Harper nodded, her mind racing. They couldn't have known exactly when Earth's fleet would arrive, but the Lurka had certainly been watching their every move. And now, it seemed, they were going to make sure humanity never reached the Xenorus. The weapon they had been desperately searching for was now closer than ever, but the Lurka weren't about to let them claim it. "We're outnumbered," Trent muttered. "We don't have enough firepower to take on their fleet." "They know that," Harper replied, her voice steady but filled with anxiety. "They've always known that. This is a trap." The Lurka ship on the lead of the formation began to broadcast a message. It was a chillingly familiar voice, one they had heard many times before, the voice of the same Lurka envoy who had addressed Earth's people before the invasion began. The transmission came through on all frequencies, cutting through the silence of space with a cold precision. "General Trent, Dr. Harper," the voice echoed. "It's been a long time since we've spoken. But I believe you knew this day would come. Your journey was never meant to succeed. The Xenorus, the weapon you seek, is nothing more than a myth, a fable, passed down to keep hope alive. The reality is far darker than you can imagine." Harper's pulse quickened. The Lurka had always been enigmatic, but this was something else. She had known they were manipulative, but to hear them speak with such finality, as though they had planned everything from the beginning, made her blood run cold. "You must understand, Earthlings," the Lurka voice continued. "The war you are fighting, the destruction you have witnessed, is nothing compared to what is to come. The Galactic Empire is an unstoppable force. It is a force of nature. And you are nothing but a pawn in a game you cannot hope to win. We have always been your guides, your protectors, keeping you from the chaos that would consume you. Now you must accept your place in the order of things. There is no Xenorus. There is only the will of the galaxy, and it is inevitable." General Trent clenched his fists, anger rising within him. But Harper's mind was elsewhere, racing through the possibilities. There was no scenario, no weapon to turn the tide of the war. The truth hung in the air like a dense fog. The Lurka had been playing Earth from the start. They had never intended to aid humanity. Instead, they had used Earth as a stepping stone in their scheme, a pawn in a game where the real players were the Empire and the Lurka themselves. I have to admit, the Lurka voice continued, now laced with a cruel undertone. Your resilience has been impressive, but it will not save you. The Xenaris was never within your reach. It was never meant to be. The galaxy has its place, and you will fall in line with the rest of the civilizations we have guided to their doom. Accept your fate, General. Accept your fate. Dr. Harper, your species will be remembered, but your war will end. The transmission cut off, leaving a heavy silence in its wake. The fleet, now fully surrounded by the Lurka ships, was trapped. Earth's forces were on the verge of defeat, with no way out. Every ship, every weapon, had been rendered obsolete before the might of the Lurka. The humans had never stood a chance, not in the face of such overwhelming power. Harper's mind was still reeling from the words she had heard. The Xenaris didn't exist. It had been a fabrication, a tool to keep humanity's hope alive long enough to be used. The Lurka had never wanted Earth to win. They had only wanted Earth to believe they could fight. But amidst the despair, a thought occurred to Harper, one that made her blood run cold. The Lurka had always been cryptic about their true nature. What if they weren't just manipulating humanity? What if they were manipulating the entire galaxy? There's more to this, Harper said aloud, her voice trembling with realization. This isn't just about us. The Lurka aren't just using Earth. They're using the Empire, too. Trent looked at her, his brow furrowed. What do you mean? The Lurka have never been the heroes. They've never fought the Empire. They've always guided civilizations into the path of destruction. And now they're doing the same thing with us. They didn't want us to win. They wanted us to fight and lose, because the Empire is a tool to their greater goal. Trent's eyes narrowed as he processed her words. What are you saying? That the Lurka are working with the Empire? No, Harper said, her voice low. I think the Lurka are manipulating both sides. They've been setting up the galaxy for something even worse. The Empire is part of their plan. They need this war. They need the destruction. It's all been part of a larger design, an order they want to impose, a galaxy controlled by them. The final gambit. The stillness in space was broken only by the hum of the remaining human ships as they faced the encroaching Lurka fleet. Earth's forces had been brought to the edge of defeat. Trapped in the cold void, surrounded by ships of alien design, General Marcus Trent and Dr. Evelyn Harper stood together in the command center, staring at a screen that showed the inevitable. Lurka ships forming an unbreakable perimeter around them. But Harper wasn't thinking of surrender. Her mind was alive with the discovery she'd made in the depths of Lurka history. If her theories were correct, there was still one way to stop this nightmare. The Lurka might control vast swaths of the galaxy, but the one thing they had underestimated was the strength of humanity's will. If they could somehow break free from their control and access the key to the Lurka's power, they could change everything. We can do this, Harper whispered, more to herself than to Trent. He didn't respond immediately, his eyes fixed on the screen. But when he finally spoke, it was with the cold resolve of a leader who had seen his people pushed to the edge. How? Harper glanced back at him, her gaze determined. The Xenaris. It's not a weapon, Marcus. It's a key. The key to breaking the Lurka's grip on the galaxy. And I know where it is. Where? Trent asked sharply. The Lurka shut down our sensors. We can't even see past their blockade. Harper paced the room, her mind working through the information she'd pieced together from the ancient Lurka texts. I know the location, but it's not just about reaching it. It's about understanding what it actually is. The Xenaris isn't something they can control. It's part of an older system, one that even the Lurka can't manipulate. A long silence stretched between them, heavy with uncertainty. Trent rubbed his jaw, thinking, "We don't have much time. If we sit here waiting, we're dead. The Lurka will finish what they started. But if you're right, if this key can unlock something they can't control, then we have to try." Harper's heart raced. The stakes had never been higher. The Lurka's blockade had been tightening, but there was still a slim chance, a sliver of hope, that if they acted quickly enough, they could escape the trap and reach the place where the Xenaris was hidden. She had seen the ancient coordinates embedded in the encrypted Lurka data, and she knew that it was not in the heart of Lurka territory. It was somewhere more ancient, hidden in the forgotten folds of the galaxy. The Lurka had gone to great lengths to erase it from history, but some things could not be buried. "We move out now," Harper said, with newfound determination. "Prepare the ships. I'll guide us there." The decision was made, and without hesitation, Trent ordered the remaining human fleet into motion. The engines roared to life, and the small, battered fleet began to move toward the unknown. A mission born of desperation and driven by the possibility of saving humanity from the jaws of extinction. But as they moved through the void, a cold realization settled over Harper. The Xenaris wasn't just a key to the Lurka's control, it was also the last hope of freedom for all civilizations under their domination. If the Lurka realized what they were doing, they would stop at nothing to prevent them from reaching the weapon. And as if on cue, the warning lights blinked to life on the command center screen. "Imperial ships detected," the voice of the communications officer crackled over the speakers. Trent clenched his fists, his face hardening. "They're here. The Empire won't let us escape." Harper felt a wave of dread, but she couldn't let it consume her. She had come too far to turn back now. "We can't outrun them. We need to go in blind. No more fighting, no more distractions. This is the only chance we have." Trent nodded, giving the order to adjust course. The fleet veered off toward the coordinates Harper had decrypted. There was no turning back. They would have to rely on speed, stealth, and the element of surprise. They had to get to the Xenaris first. If they failed, the Empire would destroy them, and the Lurka would continue their game of domination. The tension was unbearable as they moved deeper into uncharted space. The journey felt longer than it was, every moment stretching into infinity. The stars outside seemed to fade into darkness, the void closing in. The Lurka were closing in from all sides, their ships relentless, silent, patient. They knew where the humans were headed. They had to stop them. Suddenly, the communication system flared to life once more, cutting through the thick silence. This time, it was the Lurka themselves. "You're too late." The voice of the Lurka envoy echoed through the speakers, colder than ever. "You cannot escape. The Xenaris is already in our hands. You are fools if you believe you can win this war. The galaxy has its place. You will submit to it, or you will be erased." Harper clenched her teeth. The Lurka were playing their hand now, revealing the true nature of their control. They weren't just fighting the Empire. They were fighting to maintain their stranglehold on everything. But she couldn't afford to hesitate. "We'll see about that," Harper muttered, her voice steady. "Get us to the Xenaris. Now." The human fleet pushed forward, dodging obstacles in their path, relying on every bit of speed and maneuverability they had left. The Lurka ships shadowed them, keeping a close distance, but not making the move to attack just yet. They were content to follow, content to let the humans think they still had a chance. And then, as they reached the final stretch, something unexpected happened. A massive ship appeared from behind an asteroid, an Imperial warship. The Empire had been following them all along. But this time, it wasn't just one ship. It was an entire fleet. Harper's eyes widened as the full scale of the Empire's reinforcements became clear. Their trap had been sprung. "Brace for impact," Trent ordered, his voice sharp as they prepared for the worst. The first blast from the Imperial ship shattered the silence, ripping through the void like a thunderclap. The humans fired back, their makeshift weapons having little effect against the Empire's superior firepower. The battle had begun, and it was clear that the odds were stacked against them. But just as all seemed lost, a strange phenomenon occurred. A bright light, almost blinding in its intensity, flashed from the asteroid field ahead. At first, Harper thought it was a weapons blast, but it was something far different. The Xenaris, a massive energy pulse, shot out from the core of the asteroid, hitting both the Lurka and Imperial ships in its path. Both fleets were forced to pull back, temporarily blinded and disoriented by the intense energy field. The Xenaris had activated itself. Harper's heart raced as the truth came crashing down on her. The Xenaris wasn't just a key to the Lurka's control, it was a weapon. A weapon so powerful it could disrupt both the Lurka's grip on the galaxy and the Empire's plans. And now, it was in their hands. The energy field flickered again, this time sending a shockwave across the entire battlefield, incapacitating ships from both fleets. But it was clear, Harper and Trent weren't the only ones who had underestimated the power of the Xenaris. The Lurka had hidden it, but they hadn't understood it. And now, it was theirs to command. "Move in, now," Trent barked, his voice filled with renewed determination. The remaining human ships pushed forward, their sights set on the core of the Xenaris. As they neared, the energy pulse intensified, swirling like a storm of light and power. Harper knew that once they reached it, the fate of the galaxy would be sealed. The Lurka could not be allowed to take control of the Xenaris. If they did, it would mean the end of freedom for all civilizations. The battle wasn't over. It had only just begun. The realization hit hard. The Lurka were not merely taking advantage of the Empire's conquests. They were orchestrating them. The entire galaxy, from the Empire's destructive campaigns to the fragile resistance on Earth, had been carefully shaped to fit the Lurka's vision of a new order, one that Earth, and every other civilization, would have no choice but to accept. "We have to stop them," Harper said, more to herself than to Trent. "If we don't, the Empire will be the least of our problems." Trent's voice cut through her thoughts. "We're running out of time, Evelyn. We have no fleet left. No weapons. We're out of options." Harper turned to him, determination flooding her veins. "We may be out of options, but I've learned something. The Lurka may control the galaxy, but they don't control everything. There's one last hope left." Trent raised an eyebrow. "What hope?" Harper took a deep breath. "We've been looking for the Xenaris in all the wrong places. The weapon isn't a weapon at all. It's a key to their power. And I know where it's hidden. If we can reach it before they do, we might just stand a chance." The Lurka's ships closed in, the distance between them and Earth's fleet narrowing with every passing second. The battle was about to begin, but Harper was no longer focused on escaping. She was focused on something far more dangerous, something that could break the Lurka's hold on the galaxy. The final chapter was about to begin.